Welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week we have Jamie Wheeldon from Symity. Jamie's a longtime friend. We've worked together both at customers and at partners, and he gives us a really deep insight and perspective on the whole AI journey, not just the Microsoft journey, but kind of what's happened in the AI space historically, where that brings us to today, how all that history kind of impacts where we are today, and what Microsoft are doing with Copilot and the various Copilots. Great insights from Jamie. Very much appreciate his time and hope you enjoy the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the pod. Excited for this one. We are on the hot topic of the year at the moment, I think, which is generative AI. Jamie, I've worked with for many years in previous lives, and we had a really good conversation offline about kind of setting context for what's going on in AI and what's going on with Microsoft. So I thought we'd have the same conversation on the pod. So Jamie, thanks for coming on. Do you want to give us a little bit of intro and background for you?
Yeah. So hi everyone. So I've been working in the Microsoft partner space for a long time. I'm currently working with a company called Symity. I'm their chief architect, and we do a lot of work across the entire modern workplace stack within the Microsoft M365 suite. We're also a Microsoft Copilot Jumpstart partner, and we're doing a lot of work with customers as part of that program to help them navigate the new world that is generative AI and all of the challenges that brings.
Yeah, obviously we can't do customer names, but you're working with some pretty big customers around this, and it was interesting to get your feedback on what you're seeing and what they're seeing. And I'm relying on you here to kind of demarketing this a little bit and give us some insight as to what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely see customers in lots of different spaces at the moment. You know, there's obviously huge excitement and huge buzz around AI and Gen AI in particular, which is generating real drive and interest. There's lots of challenges though in this space. You know, there's definitely organizations that are going all in on this, and they're investing money to do it properly, run adoption campaigns, work out the best way of driving this technology into their business and getting value from it, because it's not a cheap set of tools and capabilities. And that's great, but it's an entirely new sector. So there's lots of thought leadership that those companies are looking to take advantage of in terms of how they do that correctly. And then at the other side of the scale, we've got organizations that are just going out and buying half a dozen licenses and having a play.
Yeah.
They don't know what they don't know, because it is all new, and therefore they're struggling to really leverage the potential of the technology, because they're going at it with a fairly simplistic mindset.
It can honestly be quite underwhelming if you don't deploy this properly in terms of you see the marketing. It's not just Microsoft, like the whole industry is super hyped on the potential of AI. And then unfortunately, you see some customers buy a few seats, throw it out there. They do meeting recap. In the case of M365 Copilot, and they don't do much else. I've seen other line of business, GitHub in particular, be super successful because the people using it kind of get the value more inherently, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just discovered Copilot within Power BI recently, which is like hugely powerful for kind of doing that advanced data analytics thing and writing all of the really complicated queries that I just don't have the brain for. It's like huge.
Don't tell Kevin on our team, we haven't got it yet, so he's going to be after that. That's awesome.
Yeah, but you're right. It's a challenging industry. It's going to be exciting watching how people get the most out of these tools moving forward, and which companies do really well at that and which companies start falling behind.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of let's scene set, because we're all talking about AI, and I wouldn't say I could explain it in the best way from scratch. You've got a really good way of explaining kind of the history here, so maybe we could start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done a little bit of talking around this with customers and internally across our business. I kind of feel it's worth stepping back a little bit and looking at what we mean by AI. So for those that are watching on YouTube, I've got some slides here, but I've pulled a definition of AI, which is technology that aims to create machines and software capable of mimicking the cognitive functions of human intelligence. I thought that was a really good way of defining what we mean here. But it's also worth recognizing that, this isn't new technology. A lot of this stuff has been around a long time. So like the first AI systems were created in the 1970s, and they were called expert systems. And they were basically rule-based systems that were mimicking human expertise in specific domains. So if we think about it as new because it's all current and there's all the current hype, but actually we've been working with AI for a long, long time. We've also got things like fuzzy logic, which are about dealing with uncertainty and imprecision and making predictions in uncertain systems. Robotics AI, this is something that's been in manufacturing for a really long while, helping robots deal with the fact that the physical world is not always predictable. So that component is not always going to be precisely in this place. So helping those robots deal with an unpredictable physical environment.
So is that where the kind of vision stuff comes in, the computer vision and those pieces?
Yeah, a little bit. And obviously that's not just cameras and things, it's other kind of real world sensors as well. So it could be a range of different sensors to help them interpret what's going on in the non-digital space. And neural networks have been around for a long time in terms of trying to mimic our learning capability, and apply that to various different data sets. Machine learning, again, really popular a while ago. We saw how this was used to really great use case. I think in New York, where they did an analysis of crime rates and weather patterns and understanding, where to place policemen based on certain patterns of behavior and weather and traffic information. They were able to reduce crime rates. So this is all about learning from large sets of data and draw a pattern recognition where you wouldn't expect there to be a natural pattern. And then moving on to things like natural language processing. So this is really, where we see the development of things like Siri and Alexa and all of those capabilities that have pervaded our home and personal life. And that's really the precursor to the technology that we're talking about now, which is generative AI, which is using that natural language processing to take instruction, but then use that instruction to generate content, whether that content's images or text or query results from data that you've got. And obviously this is creating the buzz, but it's worth understanding that this is built on a whole bunch of different technology that's come before it and been around for decades.
Yeah, it's really good to get the context and the history. Like you say, it feels like in some ways it's come out of nowhere, but actually even, what Google were doing with DeepMind and OpenAI have been doing for years and years and years. It's like when OpenAI released ChatGPT to the public, it kind of caught everybody's attention as, oh my God, this is a new powerful capability.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like way back watching the War Games. Do you remember the film from the 1980s?
Yeah, with the green screens and
Absolutely, yeah. So it's been there on the fringes of our social consciousness for a long while, but obviously, ChatGPT has just kicked it into the mainstream like nothing before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. So, I guess then when we're looking at that generative AI space and that revolution that ChatGPT and OpenAI have caused, it's kind of worth understanding that we are right at the beginning of this cycle. It's almost like back in the 80s and the early 90s where the internet was a new thing. Everyone was really excited about it, but no one really knew what we're going to get from it or what some of the challenges of using that are going to be. And it's exactly the same with AI at the moment.
That's a great comparison of like, I think most people agree it's going to be impactful, but at the moment we're all kind of guessing at where the value is, where the ROI is. And I think if you look back to the internet, even some of the most bullish estimations of how impactful it will be have probably underestimated what it ended up being. And it could be the case with AI, but who knows what the time frame is.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels like at the moment we're in this massive race where everybody's trying to bring a new AI tool to market and find those use cases and corner that industry, right? And everyone's doing it slightly differently. And that inherently is also creating some challenges because no one's really got a proper grip on how to do this responsibly yet. There's lots of different thoughts on responsible AI frameworks. Microsoft and other organizations have got a different slant on it. And how these different platforms are going to use our data. So we're all running out there. We're putting information into ChatGPT and we're saying, hey, can you help me with this and have a look at this document and summarize that for me? All of these different platforms, though, are treating our data differently. Some have quite strict rules on data security. Others will take all that information and use that to get better and to learn and to train their large language models. So does that mean our data could be surfaced by someone else at some other point who's written a similar query? Like all of that stuff is all, and best practice is all still being worked out. And I think
also the content for training the models is a big topic as well, isn't it? It's like what's fair use on the internet content that's being scraped and these licensing deals that are being made with different big media outlets. So like Microsoft have got their kind of copyright commitment around if it's generated by them on the commercial tools, they'll kind of stand by it being defensible, and again, different in different tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of it, this is a business. It's a new business. It's a new section of technology. We've got to be aware that this is all being commercially driven. And we need to just approach that sensibly and understand there's a little bit of self-awareness here of, these tools are great and on the surface it looks amazing, but I do actually need to know how they're being used underneath and what happens to all the information I put into them. It's really key. But like we're saying, it's big business. So I took some stats from a recent Bloomberg survey, market research type paper that predicted that AI was going to grow to a $1.3 trillion market in the next 7 or 8 years, which is just phenomenal. That's that size of growth and that acceleration. And within that, when I look at my area in terms of the IT services industry, it was predicted that we're probably an $83 million market size for AI within IT services. But again, over the same period, that's predicted to grow to 86 billion. So there's huge amounts of revenue here. And like we were saying earlier, everybody's scrabbling to get a share of that pie, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, to see how much the big global cloud players are obviously going to suck a lot of that money up to providing the underlying models, but there's also the small models, the line of business use cases, the in-house AI tools. It's not really agreed yet how that's going to shake out between these large generalist models and the specific models and third-party tools versus rolling your own. It's all very fluid and exciting at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously, why is this so popular? Why is it currently such a big deal? And why is everybody so excited about it? So I pulled some stats from Microsoft's Work Trend Index, which is an annual survey that they run that gathers all sorts of information around businesses and modern ways of working. And there's some really cool stats on here. 62% of leaders are struggling with, lack of innovation or ideation processes. Lots of people are spending far too much time searching for information or stuck in meetings and not being productive.
That one super resonates to me, right? Like having worked with various organizations, like all the information is out there somewhere in the org, possibly in emails, OneDrive, SharePoints, but can anyone lay their fingers on that information? How much gets recreated and reused, or old things get used because we're not able to find the information we need?
Yeah, totally. And the other thing for me is that post COVID, I definitely find that I'm spending so much more time now in Teams meetings, calls,
Mhm.
than I was previously. And that chews through a huge amount of your day, which again means that I'm probably less productive than I used to be. Um,
And your mental capacity as well. I think people underestimate like joining meetings, even if you're not it's not your meeting, you're super engaged. It just chips away at your mental energy for that day. So that's a big one as well.
yeah, yeah. So I think across all sectors of the business world, everybody's latched on to all of these facts, and they've seen the potential for AI to come in and help them solve all of these problems, um, and sort of transform the way that we work and do business. But like at the same time, those same organisations are concerned by a whole range of different challenges that Gen AI is gonna generate, kind of like basic things like what are the ethical and social implications of using these tools? What access to my data do they have, and how do I need to secure that? How does this affect things like intellectual property? If AI will
Mm.
generate something that's very similar to something that I've got intellectual property rights on, like what's the implications of that? How do we get users on board with using this technology and not feeling threatened by it and not feeling like it's going to be the thing that comes along and makes them redundant? Um,
Yeah, and that's a really tough conversation. Like obviously all the marketing is going to the classic IT story that we've all used for every technology ever, which is like we can get rid of the drudgery and you can be doing newer things, and more exciting and business impacting things, and that's definitely true to an extent. But also, like pragmatically, businesses are looking to get the most out of their employees, so people might well be nervous about, well, if this makes people twice as productive, do we need the same amount of people for these particular use cases?
yeah, absolutely. And I think a really critical thing here to focus on is that reskilling of employees. So I had a
Mm.
really interesting conversation the other week. I was on a panel for our internal annual company kickoff. And somebody was asking the question that they work with lots of customers in the education sector. There's obviously a lot of concern within that sector about, well, how do I stop my students using this technology to cheat? And we had a really good discussion there about the fact that we are in an inflection point in society in terms of we've got quite old ways of looking at education and thinking about how we measure
Yeah.
knowledge acquisition. And
Even that word cheat is interesting, isn't it? Because I was on a call with Microsoft the other day, just yesterday actually, and I said, yeah, I wrapped up. I was like, thanks everybody. I'm going to cheat and get Copilot to bang the summary out. And then somebody on Microsoft called me out. They're like, well, it's not cheating, is it? It's just using the tool. And I was like, yeah, it's funny. Like the same thing with the education. Like my older daughter's only 9, but I'm starting to show her some of this stuff just to be like, it's going to be a reality of this tooling. So what is the point of education? Because people are going to have these tools. Are we educating them to remember things, to think about things, to generate content? It's a whole interesting space.
yeah, absolutely. And the way I think of this is that rather than teaching people which buttons to click in Excel or Word or Power BI, or how to write a KQL script if you're a security analyst, or the facts that you need to remember to pass your exam, it's much more
Mm.
about teaching people to be critical thinkers and to have a set of skills that allows them to interact and
Love
search
that.
for and find the relevant information and draw conclusions from it.
Yeah, yeah, and how to leverage the tools. I had a fun debate a few months ago with a customer, and it was like, you wouldn't not give your employees access to the internet or laptops or mobiles. Like that would be mental, right? Like how would you restrict their productivity? And I can make the same case for AI tools. Like you're artificially restricting their potential to deliver great value to you. Obviously it's got to be carefully measured and everything else, but I feel like it's going to go the same way. Like you'd be mad at some point not to let your people have these tools because you won't be allowing them to get the most out of themselves for you.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think unlike previous generations of technology change, where it's been very evolutionary, it's been one step after another. This is very transformational, and it's a big step. You know,
Mm,
people have been very used to using technology, and you'll give them a new app, and it's like, right, well, these are the buttons you need to press, but you're used to pressing buttons because that's what you've done in every other program you've ever used. Like now we're giving them this AI tool. It's like, well, here's a blank box, just ask it stuff.
yeah.
Um, and it's a different skill set, so we need to get people transitioned over to that. And it's not a simple thing to do. To giving people that blank piece of paper and asking them, off you go, have a play. So we need to help them understand how to create a prompt that is fair and gives accurate results, and how to detect bias in the questions that we're asking and the response that we're getting back.
And I guess being critical about the responses as well. It's a weird it's a weird one in terms of technology to be like, here's a tool, it's amazing, but also be cynical and critical about what it returns because it can be wrong. It is it is fallible rather. So like, I think it's tough to have a conversation with employees sometimes around, here's a great new tool, but use it loads, but don't trust it. But do use it, but don't trust it. Like it's a weird one.
Yeah. So when I'm talking to customers, the way that I describe this best is by comparing it to having an intern in your team. They're a really valuable resource. You can get them to go away and do all sorts of great stuff, but you have to really give them clear instructions. You have to
Yeah.
spend a little bit of time reviewing what they provide you back. And also, you can't expect to just give them one instruction and have them go away and then come back with a perfect result. It needs to be a bit of conversation and a bit of back and forth. Like,
Yeah.
getting the most out of generative AI is the same. You've kind of got to treat it a bit like an intern.
That's a good mental model. What are you guys doing at Symity in terms of working with those customers to help? It's one thing us saying this on the podcast, but how do you do that with employees?
Yeah, so we've spent a bit of time internally developing a framework, specifically around Copilot, and at the moment more focused on Copilot for M365, where we'll run almost like a sprint process. So we'll take a tranche of users, we'll educate them on what Copilot is and what the value is and how to use it. We'll drip feed them training content, video, snippets. We'll have weekly meetings. We'll track their usage so that we can give them key information back. We have what we call our Center of Excellence team, where people can come together, share hints, share tips. We use
So
Microsoft.
a pretty sustained effort then, not just a here's a video, here's a training course, off you go, but like a multi-week process.
So it's about 8 to 12 weeks per sprint to take up, a group of users or a community of users through that whole end-to-end process.
Interesting.
So yeah, because it's what we tend to find is that if you just throw it out there, you'll give people a training video on it. They'll have a play for a week or maybe a little bit longer, and then very quickly they'll default back to their old ways of working because humans just naturally do that.
Habit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you need that sustained communication and engagement period to truly affect change, but also to help them get them up the learning curve about the best ways of using this technology and working with colleagues to share ideas and things. At Microsoft, we've got an app called Prompt Buddy, which is really good for collecting internal knowledge about the best ways of using AI and sharing that across teams, like capturing those organization-specific use cases. That's definitely worth having a look at.
Oh, good tip. Thank you.
So, like, when we're looking at that Microsoft proposition around Copilot, there's like so many different things Microsoft are doing with Copilot at the moment, and it's worth understanding, I think, that Copilot is not a product; it's a suite of products. We've got the Copilot tools within the modern workspace for things like M365 and Windows Copilot and Bing Enterprise Chat. I think that's been recently renamed. Microsoft love a rename. Yeah, and then we've got the tools that you were talking about earlier in terms of like GitHub and Copilot in Power BI. There's the new security
Yeah,
Copilot tool that's been
I
released.
did.
So
I did a session over at Comms v Next, and Microsoft seems to be defaulting to um, in the product is part of a bigger SKU, and for the product is like an add-on. So for Microsoft 365 versus like in Excel. And I think I got up to, I think it was 14 fours that are genuine separate product SKUs. And then there were like something like 19 ins. And that's a constantly growing list. So it really, range of products, range of use cases.
yeah, and I think at the moment Microsoft have probably got the strongest portfolio of generative AI tools and services. It seems to span pretty much the entire Microsoft stack in terms of capability, which is great. Obviously, I work for a Microsoft partner, so it makes my job really easy because I'm going out there saying, well, this is the most complete set of AI tools on the market at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
also you can work you can work backwards from the use case, right? Isn't it? Like I think I love the GitHub Copilot. I mean, so obviously that kicked it all off for Microsoft, but I think that's a really strong Gen AI use case, and those users are already technical, already coders, can unlock value there. Obviously, modern work is getting the most hype in our space because the potential for the productivity improvements are massive. So that's really exciting too.
And that's the easy place to start, right? It's really easy helping an organization understand that, well, here's a whole bunch of meeting summary stuff that you can do quite easily, or here's a tool that's going to help you discover documents across your SharePoint environment that have the information that you need. Those use cases are really easy to hang your hat on when this is all new to an organization, but it also provides that foundational understanding of what Gen AI is and how it works, and you can use that as a springboard to then start looking at, well, okay, can I build this into some of my like contact center applications or my line of business apps, and then you start getting into all of the great stuff that you can do with Copilot Studio, and extending this into other data sets and other applications. But I think we need to get people to that common understanding of what it is and what it's good for and how you get the best out of it before you start branching off into all of that custom stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because actually, I mean, some of the custom stuff can be some of the biggest value and really good ROI because you're into kind of consumption models as well. But then you've got if you're a line of, I guess knowledge work would be the right phrase of you're in Outlook every day, you're in Teams every day, you're in Excel every day, then really that's where the Copilot for M365 really comes to life.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can bag all of that saving, that's obviously got to be the place to start, because that's where you're going to get the most cross-user, easy business case in terms of ROI and use case. But again, you need that to build the understanding of what else is possible. So I think it's a really interesting space. I'm really interested to see where this is going to go going forwards, and which organisations are going to float to the top of the pile when it comes to making the most out of this technology. I'd like to think all Symity customers are going to be somewhere near the top, obviously.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. Like I'm really selfishly excited that Microsoft have, got on this wave early and are in the mix. Obviously, it's the area you and I both focus on, but more generally as an industry, it's just a super exciting time to see how fast this technology is moving and how people can use it to add value, increase productivity.
Definitely, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jamie, for taking the time to explain that. It's really useful to get your point of view, particularly as you're working, with the customers. If people want to find out more about you or Symity, what's the best thing to do?
Reach out, tap me up on LinkedIn. So it's jamie.wheeldon@symity.com, or you can just head over to our website, which is www.symity.com.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time, mate. Talk again soon.
It's been great. Thank you very much.